Have you ever stared at something so wrong, so out of place that your body reacted before your brain could catch up? That's exactly what happened to Michael Harrington at 6:07 a.m., barreling through the Pennsylvania countryside at 110 miles per hour with 217 passengers behind him. The sun was just beginning to burn through the mist, golden light breaking over the tree line when he spotted it. A dog, not running, not crossing, but standing dead center on the tracks, head high, eyes locked on the oncoming locomotive, like it had a reason to be there. Michael leaned forward, squinting hard. A German shepherd. Big, healthy, not a stray, no blood, no limp. Just still, defiant, like it was waiting for him. He hit the horn 2 long blasts, standard protocol, enough to startle deer, coyotes, even bears. The dog didn't flinch. It barked, once, then again, frantic, urgent, as if it were trying to say something. Michael Harrington had been driving trains longer than most folks kept a marriage. 28 years in the conductor's seat. Steady Mike, his coworkers called him. He'd been through mechanical failures, suicides, winter storms that froze rail switches solid. But this, a German shepherd barking at a train, this was new. He grabbed the intercom. "Thomas, we've got an obstruction on the tracks." "Dog, looks deliberate. I'm braking." His conductor's voice crackled back. "Copy. But it's just a dog, right?" Michael didn't answer. Something in his gut, the same instinct that once saved his crew during a track collapse near Altoona, told him this wasn't just a dog, this was a warning. He initiated service braking, a smooth deceleration, but they were still doing 95 and closing fast. The shepherd started pacing back and forth, a tight loop across the rails, barking like mad. Michael leaned forward. His fingers hovered over the emergency brake. That red handle wasn't supposed to be touched unless there were lives at stake. Using it for an animal could cost him his job. But as the train closed in 600 feet, 400, 300, the shepherd didn't run. It planted its paws. And that's when Michael made the decision that would unravel everything he thought he knew about rules, instinct, and loyalty. He yanked the emergency brake. The train shrieked like a wounded beast, metal grinding on metal. Passengers tumbled forward in their seats. Coffee flew. Laptops hit the floor. Michael didn't flinch. He watched the dog, still standing, still barking. The locomotive came to a full stop 15 feet short of the shepherd. A second of silence followed, the kind that makes your ears ring. Then the dog turned, not to run, to lead. It barked once and jogged along the rail line, glancing back as if to say, "Are you coming or not?" Michael unclipped from his seat. "Thomas," he said into the radio voice, steady, "I'm stepping out. Log me as investigating a track obstruction. Keep the passengers calm." He grabbed his flashlight, radio, and emergency kit, then opened the cab door. The cold air slapped him in the face. So did the silence. The shepherd had stopped a few yards down the track, waiting. Michael followed. The mist clung low to the gravel as they rounded a curve, stepping out of the train's line of sight. Then he saw her. A small shape, bundled, barely moving. At first he thought it was a doll, but it wasn't. It was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 4 or 5. Blonde hair matted with dirt, cheeks scratched, one tiny wrist chained to the steel rail. A rusty padlock clamped the loop tight around the rail tie. Michael dropped to his knees. Jesus. The dog whined, circling her protectively. He checked her pulse. Alive, faint, cold, still breathing. Michael opened his emergency kit and wrapped her in the thermal blanket. His hands trembled. Not from fear, from rage. Who does this to a child? He clicked his radio. "Thomas, patch me straight through to emergency services. We've got a child on the tracks. She's chained down, alive. I need medics, police, and fire. Now." As he waited, he kept one hand on the girl's blanket and the other gently patting the shepherd's neck. "You did good," he whispered to the dog. "You saved her." The dog licked his hand. If you believe in stories like this of animal heroes and second chances, hit that subscribe button to support our channel, Heroes for Animals. We've got more real stories coming, and your support helps us keep sharing them. 10 minutes later, sirens broke the quiet. The first responders found Michael kneeling over the girl, the German shepherd lying beside her like a soldier on watch. Paramedics lifted her gently onto a stretcher. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared at Michael with glassy gray-blue eyes. She hadn't spoken a word. Not then, not on the ambulance ride, not when the nurses tried to clean her up. Just silence, And the dog, he never left her side. When hospital security tried to keep him out, the girl wrapped her fingers in his fur and made a single sound. No, it was the only thing she'd said all day. Michael sat in the waiting room of Johnsville Regional Hospital, still in his work jacket, train cap crumpled in his lap. His shift should have ended hours ago. His legs ached. His coffee had gone cold. But he couldn't bring himself to leave. He kept thinking, what if I hadn't stopped? What if that dog had picked the wrong train? What if someone had already come back for her? And then why was she chained there at all? Nothing about this felt random. Later that evening, a detective finally approached. Woman in her 40s, sharp eyes, silver streaks in her ponytail. Mr. Harrington, I'm Detective Elaine Mercer. He nodded. Is she? She's stable. No internal injuries, mild hypothermia, old bruises, nothing fresh. She paused. She still won't speak. Michael looked down at his boots. He knew. Somehow he knew she was in danger. Detective Mercer sat across from him. The vet scanned his chip. Named Scout, registered as a PTSD service dog, but the owner's information is out of date. No missing persons report connected to either of them. Michael furrowed his brow. She has no name, no ID, and so far, no one's come looking. The detective leaned in. But someone put her there, locked her down, and made sure it looked like an accident waiting to happen. Michael didn't sleep that night. Neither did Scout. The hospital had made an exception for him. The little girl wouldn't rest without the dog curled up beside her bed. As the hallway lights dimmed, Michael walked past the window of her room one more time. She was still awake, eyes wide, one hand on the dog's fur. And Michael, he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd only just scratched the surface of something much, much darker. Something that little girl couldn't speak of. But that dog, that German shepherd who refused to move, he had known the truth. And he hadn't stopped until someone listened. For 3 hours, she didn't say a word. Not when the nurses bathed her, not when the doctor gently checked her ribs, not even when the IV needle went in and she flinched hard enough to make the bed rattle. The only thing she clung to was the dog. Scout. He lay beside her cot, his head on his paws, eyes tracking everyone who entered like a seasoned bodyguard. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. But no one questioned the look in his eyes. Touch her without her say-so, and you'll regret it. Michael Harrington had seen his fair share of injuries. Broken limbs, trackside accidents, even a couple of suicide recoveries. But this little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, had a silence that wasn't medical. It was buried. He watched her from the doorway, coffee in one hand, exhaustion clouding his thoughts. He wasn't sure why he was still at the hospital. Technically, his part was over. But something about this didn't sit right. Nobody gets chained to railroad tracks by accident. Michael, a familiar voice called. He turned to find Detective Mercer walking toward him, her coat dusted with rain, and a legal pad tucked under her arm. We got a preliminary statement from the medical team, she said, nodding toward the little girl's room. Minor malnourishment, fading bruises. No fresh signs of assault, but there are signs of restraint, possibly over a period of time. Michael's jaw tightened, and she still hasn't talked. Not a word, but she reacts to the dog. And you? Mercer squinted at him. She said no when security tried to take Scout away. That's something. I think she trusts him, Michael said, motioning toward the German shepherd. Mercer nodded. Smart kid, I trust him too. Scout had been examined by the vet techs the hospital called in. They confirmed what Michael already suspected. The dog wasn't just any pet. He was a trained PTSD service animal. Tags confirmed his name, and the chip traced back to a man named Kyle Avery, but the contact number was dead. Address vacant. The paper trail ended 2 years ago in rural Ohio. So let me get this straight, Michael said as he walked with Mercer toward the lobby. We've got a missing girl with no ID and a service dog who's been off the radar for years, and no one, not one person, has come looking for either of them. That's exactly what I'm saying, Mercer replied. It doesn't make sense. Not unless someone wanted her to disappear. Michael stopped walking. He remembered the chain, the way it was looped tight. That wasn't improvised. That was deliberate. I think this was supposed to look like an accident, he said. Wrong place, wrong time. Nobody finds her in time, and the train finishes the job. Mercer looked at him carefully. You think someone meant for her to be found? No, Michael said slowly. I think someone meant for her not to be. By late afternoon, the rain picked up, turning the October air cold and metallic. Michael stood by the window, staring into the parking lot below. He knew he should go home. He needed sleep, a shower, hell, maybe even a lawyer. He'd pulled the emergency brake on a moving passenger train for a dog. That alone was grounds for disciplinary review, but the railroad hadn't contacted him yet. Maybe they were waiting. Maybe they didn't know what to make of it. A voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "She likes you." Michael turned. It was a young nurse named Haley. She smiled gently and gestured toward the room. "She finally ate something," Haley said. "Crackers, applesauce, only after she saw you walking Scout in the hallway." Michael blinked. "Wait, she saw that?" "Through the glass," and she smiled. Haley hesitated. That was the first time today. Scout remained a constant, never more than 10 feet from the girl. He only left her side when Michael clipped a leash to his collar and walked him outside into the chilly dusk air. As the two of them stepped beyond the automatic doors, the dog paused and sniffed the air hard. His tail stiffened. "What is it, boy?" Michael crouched and followed the dog's gaze to a black sedan parked far down the hospital lot. Its windows were tinted, no visible plates. Then just like that, it started up slow and drove away. Scout growled, once low and guttural. Michael stood up slowly, a chill crawling up his spine. That car had been parked there for over an hour. He'd noticed it earlier and thought nothing of it. Now it felt like something. That night, Scout slept in the girl's hospital bed pressed against her side. Nurses didn't question it anymore. Even Mercer didn't argue. The girl finally whispered something just past midnight. She was half asleep, fingers curled around Scout's fur. Michael sat in the recliner by her bed, not really awake, not really dreaming. When he heard the whisper, he leaned in close. "What was that, sweetie?" She blinked once, eyes glassy. Her lips moved again. The red trailer." Michael leaned closer. Red trailer where? But she was asleep again, clutching the dog like a lifeline. The next morning, Mercer brought coffee and an update. "We pulled security footage from the last truck stop 30 miles west of Greenburgh," she said. 2 nights before she was found, a camera caught a red trailer pulling into the back lot around 3:12 a.m. Michael froze. "She said that," he whispered. "Last night, she said the red trailer." Mercer set her coffee down and opened her notebook. "It matches a trailer reported stolen 2 months ago out of West Virginia. Burned out VIN. The guy who parked it never came inside. No tag on the truck either. Disappeared after an hour." "Could they be the ones who did it?" Michael asked. "We don't know. But here's the kicker. The trailer was seen heading east on a frontage road that runs parallel to the rail corridor you were on. Same day you stopped the train." Michael rubbed his temples. "They drove that close. Closer than you think," Mercer said. "The frontage road intersects the same bend in the tracks. The one where you stopped." Michael sat in the hospital chapel that afternoon, Scout at his feet. He wasn't a religious man, but he'd grown up Catholic, and old habits die hard when things don't make sense. He looked up at the stained glass window deep in thought. Why her? Why this dog? Why the train? What had they interrupted? Scout gave a low whimper, nuzzling Michael's leg, as if he felt it too, that this wasn't just a random tragedy. It was something designed. That evening, the girl finally made eye contact with Michael. She reached out just slightly and touched the sleeve of his jacket. "Do you want me to stay?" he asked quietly. She nodded once. So he stayed. All night, as the storm rolled over the Pennsylvania hills, thunder echoing in the distance, Michael realized something chilling. Whoever chained that girl to the tracks wasn't finished. And if Scout hadn't been there, he didn't finish the thought. He just rested his hand on the dog's back and whispered, "We're gonna figure this out, buddy, you and me." The third day started with a name. "Her name's Lily." Michael froze in the doorway of room 208, fingers wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. He turned slowly toward Haley, the night nurse, who stood beside the bed with tears in her eyes. "She said it just now," Haley whispered. "Clear as day." Michael stepped inside. The girl sat upright in bed, knees pulled to her chest. Scout curled at her side. Her small fingers twisted into his thick fur like she'd done it 1,000 times before. "Eostuham," Lily, Michael said, gently squatting down beside her. "Is that your name, sweetheart?" She nodded, once her mouth trembling. Then she looked up at him with a whisper so soft he almost missed it. "Are the bad men coming back?" Michael's heart stopped. Detective Mercer arrived 30 minutes later with more questions and a team from Child Protective Services. Lily froze the moment they walked in. She didn't cry, didn't panic. She just shrank into Scout's side and stopped talking completely. Mercer knelt beside the bed, keeping her voice calm and her badge visible. "Lily, my name is Elaine. I'm here to help. Can I ask you something important?" "Nothing." "Do you know where you came from?" "Where your house is?" "Still nothing." "What about your mom or dad? Do you remember their names?" Silence. But the second one of the CPS agents reached towards Scout's collar. Lily's voice came out in a scream so piercing It made the entire floor go quiet. Don't touch him. Scout lunged not to bite, but to block. He planted himself in front of Lily and let out a bark so loud it made the CPS rep stumble back. Nurses rushed in. The CPS team was escorted out. Mercer stayed behind. She's not ready, she told them. Not today. Once the door closed, she turned to Michael. She trusts you. She trusts that dog. For now, that's enough. Michael nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility landing hard in his chest. He hadn't signed up for this. He was a railroad engineer. He kept trains on time and tracks in line. He wasn't a parent. He wasn't a counselor. But somehow, this little girl had decided that in a world full of strangers, he was safe. That evening, Mercer called him into a side office at the hospital. She closed the door and laid a folder on the table. You asked me to keep digging into the trailer, she mentioned. She said, we got something. Inside the folder was a set of photographs. Grainy night vision surveillance shots from a traffic camera at a rural stoplight 40 miles away. There it was, the same red trailer, same faded stripes along the side, same missing license plate. The timestamp read 2:38 a.m., the night before the train incident. Mercer flipped the photo. And here's the bigger problem. The man driving it, we matched him to a background ID. She slid another photo across the table. Michael's stomach twisted. It was a mugshot of a man in his 40s, cold eyes, tattoo on his neck. Mitchell Crawford, Mercer said. 2 prior charges of assault, 1 case of unlawful restraint. No convictions, witness recantation both times. Lives off the grid outside of Wilmot. Michael ran a hand through his hair. You think he's the one who chained her? I think he's part of something bigger, Mercer said. And I think Lily wasn't the first. Back in room 208, Lily was coloring in a notebook. Scout lay next to her, one eye cracked open, always watching. When Michael walked in, she looked up and gave a small smile, the first real one since they met. He sat beside her and offered a juice box. You doing okay, sweetheart? She nodded and pointed to her picture. It showed a dog, a train, and what looked like a long stretch of railroad. In the distance, a tiny figure standing alone. Is that me? He asked. Lily nodded. And who's this? He asked, pointing to a small scribble behind her. Her voice came out like a puff of air. Him. Michael's stomach sank. Did he put you there? He asked carefully. Lily's face crumpled, and she buried herself into Scout's side. That was all the answer he needed. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat in the hospital cafeteria alone, picking at a slice of cold pizza, staring at the linoleum floor like it held answers. Why her? Why the train? Why now? He knew from the red trailer, the missing ID. The man's face, this wasn't random. Someone had picked that spot that time. They had calculated it. But they hadn't counted on a dog. Scout sat beside him now, ears perked, gaze intense. You knew, Michael whispered. Didn't you? Scout tilted his head. You knew she was in danger, and you didn't stop until someone helped. The dog let out a small huff and laid his head on Michael's lap. I guess that makes us both the wrong people to give up. The following morning, Mercer brought more bad news. Crawford's trailer was found abandoned near a state park, she said. Burned out. Fingerprints wiped. Dog hair in the back. Michael's jaw clenched. Lily, unclear. But here's what's weird. One of the rescue team's volunteers said they remembered seeing a similar trailer at a different site 2 months ago. Same style, same paint. Michael blinked. So, someone's moving kids? Mercer's eyes didn't blink. That's what we're starting to think. Michael swallowed hard. So Lily's escape wasn't supposed to happen. No, Mercer said. It was a mistake. And someone out there knows they made it. By noon, the hospital installed private security on the pediatric floor. Not because anyone had made threats, but because of the silence. The wrong kind of silence. The kind that meant the men responsible hadn't run. They were waiting, watching, hoping to find the one witness they hadn't planned for. A little girl and a dog. Later that day, Lily spoke again, only to Michael. They were sitting in the hospital courtyard. Scout lay between them, his body warm against her small legs. Do you think I'm bad? She asked quietly. Michael's heart cracked. What? No, baby. Why would you say that? She wouldn't look at him. He said I was broken. That nobody wanted me. Michael knelt in front of her. Lily, that man, whoever he is, was wrong. You hear me? She blinked fast. You are good. You are brave. And you are not broken. Scout pressed closer, as if to back him up. Michael continued, his voice cracking a little. And I want you here. So does Scout. Lily didn't answer. She just hugged him. Tight. Back inside, Mercer was reviewing notes with another detective. When Michael entered, she looked up. She remembers more. She told me he called her broken, Michael said quietly. Mercer nodded grimly. That fits. We've had whispers about a black market foster ring, kids with trauma or disabilities less likely to fight, easier to make disappear. Michael shook his head. Jesus. Lily's the first one we found alive, Mercer said. And we wouldn't have if Scout hadn't blocked that train. Michael's eyes locked on hers. So what do we do now? Mercer looked down at her notepad, then back up. We find them before they disappear, someone else. Michael didn't think of himself as the kind of man who crossed lines. He followed rules. He kept schedules. He was the guy who double-checked the handbrake before stepping off the cab, who filed his paperwork on time every time. But that was before Lily. Before Scout. Before the hospital's security camera caught a man in a hooded jacket lurking near the pediatric wing. Just after midnight, a man who slipped out of frame before anyone could catch him. Before Lily woke up screaming at 2 a.m., soaked in sweat, clutching Scout like she'd fall off the earth without him. Michael stood at the foot of her bed watching as the nurse adjusted her blanket. Lily didn't cry anymore. She shook, quietly, in a way that made your stomach knot just watching her. Did he come back? She whispered, eyes wide. No, sweetie, Michael said softly. You're safe. Scout's here. The German Shepherd raised his head from her pillow, ears alert, muzzle resting inches from her cheek. Lily turned toward him and whispered something Michael couldn't hear. Then she finally fell back asleep. In the morning, Detective Mercer paced into the waiting room, bleary-eyed but focused. We got a hit, she said, tossing a photo on the table. Security footage from a gas station in Pine Hollow. 5 hours before you stopped the train. Michael picked up the image. The same man, Mitchell Crawford, same tattoo on his neck. But this time there was someone else behind him. A woman, tall, blonde, mid-30s. She wasn't watching Crawford. She was watching Lily. Her name's Erica Jennings, Mercer said. Former child therapist, lost her license 4 years ago for suspected abuse. Charges dropped, lack of evidence. Michael sat down hard. You think she's involved? I think she's the one who picked Lily out. Back in Lily's room, Michael sat beside her as she colored with a pink crayon. Scout lay under the window nose, twitching. Lily drew a square box with wheels, then added a stick figure in the back corner. She held up the page. That's the trailer, she whispered. Michael felt a chill crawl up his neck. He pointed to the stick figure. That's you. She nodded. He pointed to a second figure standing near the trailer's door. And this. Lily hesitated, then scribbled red lines across its face. Bad lady. That afternoon, Mercer asked Michael to step out into the hallway. We need to move her, she said. We've got a temporary placement with a trauma specialist outside the city. Michael's stomach dropped. Wait, you mean foster care? She needs protection, and right now the hospital's too exposed. He shook his head. She won't go without Scout. We already cleared that with the therapist, Mercer said. They're both welcome. Michael exhaled, slow and uneasy. And me, Mercer blinked. You? She won't eat if I'm not there. She won't talk to anyone else. That girl needs familiarity. If you take her away from both of us. Mercer held up her hand. Okay, let me see what I can do. They left the hospital at dusk in an unmarked SUV. Scout sat between Lily and Michael in the back seat, head on Lily's lap. The road stretched west toward a small cottage nestled behind a grove of pine trees. Quiet, secluded, safe, or at least safer than a hospital with broken locks and faulty cameras. The trauma specialist, Dr. Karen Holloway, greeted them on the porch. Gray hair pulled into a tight bun, a warm, motherly voice with just enough steel beneath it to suggest she didn't mess around. You must be Michael, she said, shaking his hand. And this must be Scout. And you, young lady, are braver than most people I've ever met. Lily didn't answer, but she didn't hide either. That was something. Inside, the cottage smelled like cinnamon and cedar. Dr. Holloway led them to a small bedroom with a twin-bed floral quilt and a dog bed already set up at the foot. Lily looked at the space, then at Michael, her hand tightening around his. Is this our house? She asked quietly. He looked at Holloway. She smiled and gave a small nod. For as long as you need it, kiddo, Michael said. Lily smiled barely, and Scout leapt onto the bed as if he'd been living there his whole life. After Lily was asleep, Michael stepped out onto the porch where Mercer waited with a folder under her arm and coffee in both hands. Crawford's gone, she said. Burned trailer, no phones, no credit cards, ghost. Michael sipped the coffee. And the woman? Erica Jennings has a P.O. box in New York. That's it. Her last known residence was torched 6 months ago. No neighbors, no family on record. Michael stared out at the trees. She's hunting, he said, not hiding. Mercer didn't respond, because she knew he was right. Later that night, as Michael sat by the fireplace, flipping through one of Lily's crayon drawings, he noticed something strange. One of the pictures showed a tree with a swing, But the swing wasn't hanging, it was broken. Beneath the tree were three small figures. Only one had a face. He tapped the paper and showed it to Lily the next morning. "Sweetheart, who are these?" She pointed to the face. "That's me." "And the others?" They didn't wake up. Michael froze. Wake up from what? Lily just stared at him. "Did they get put on the tracks too?" A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I think so." Mercer's investigation took a darker turn. 3 missing child cases. All girls, all under 6, each with behavioral or developmental flags that would have made adoption harder. 2 of the cases had been ruled runaways. The third officially custodial interference. A stepfather who blamed the mother. All 3 within a 100-mile radius. All within the last 12 months. Only one had survived. Lily. That evening, a strange car pulled into the driveway of the cottage. Scout was the first to react. He bolted to the front window, let out a low growl, and planted himself between the door and Lily, who was playing with a puzzle. Michael grabbed his phone and stepped outside. A man stepped out of the vehicle. Late 50s, dress shoes, tan jacket, no badge. "Can I help you, Michael?" asked, voice steady. "I'm with Family Services," the man said. "There's been a reassignment. We're here for the child." "Funny," Michael said, "because I just spoke to Mercer 30 minutes ago. She didn't mention a damn thing." The man smiled thinly. "Paperwork can move fast." Michael didn't smile back. "I'm gonna need to see I'd." The man didn't respond. He turned and got back in the car. The tires spun in the gravel as the vehicle disappeared into the trees. Inside, Scout returned to Lily's side like nothing happened. But Michael knew better. This wasn't over. They'd found her once, they'd try again. That night, as Michael lay on the couch and listened to the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing down the hall, he finally let the question escape into the room. What kind of people chain a child to a railroad track and walk away? He didn't expect an answer, but he got one anyway. A deep growl echoed from the corner where Scout lay curled on the rug, eyes open, still watching. The next morning brought something new. Lily laughed. It was quick, soft, and vanished almost as fast as it came, but it was real. Michael had been in the kitchen pouring cereal when Scout, ever the show-off, dropped a rubber squeaky toy in her lap and tried to bark with it still in his mouth. The noise came out mangled and ridiculous, like a balloon animal with a cold. Lily giggled, not smiled, not nodded. She laughed, and it stopped Michael cold in his tracks. That sound, unfiltered joy, was the first moment that didn't feel haunted since the day he'd stopped that train. Scout wagged his tail and plopped his head in her lap like a proud goofball. Lily scratched behind his ears, grinning. "You're silly." Michael smiled into his coffee. They were making progress, but progress had a deadline. And someone was still out there watching. Der Holloway noticed it first. "Lily draws doors now," she said, motioning to a collection of crayon sketches taped to the fridge. "And locks, lots of locks." Michael leaned in. She was right. There were drawings of red doors, padlocks, chains. Always the same shade of red, always heavy and detailed. "She's remembering," Holloway said. Not always consciously, but her memory's surfacing through symbols. Michael rubbed the back of his neck. "And that means what exactly?" "It means she's getting closer to the part that hurts," Holloway said gently, "and closer to the truth." Later that afternoon, Mercer showed up with news that pulled the floor out from under them. "We found the site," she said, spreading aerial photos across the table. "A patch of woods in the northeast corner of Bucks County, deep off-road, no paved access, but visible from drone footage, 4 rusted trailers, abandoned furniture, what looked like burnt trash pits. And in the clearing, what looked like child-sized shoes, dozens of them." Michael's hands curled into fists. Mercer pointed to one of the trailers. "This one matches Lily's drawings exactly. Same color, same busted window, same markings." Michael stared at it. "What is this place?" "We don't know yet, but it's not new. These trailers have been here a while." She flipped over another photo. Surveillance zoomed in, a blurry image of Crawford, and behind him, Erica Jennings. "They're not hiding," Mercer said. "They're preparing." Michael took Lily and Scout on a walk that evening through the edge of the property down a little trail that looped past a stream. Lily held Scout's leash but didn't speak. Finally, she asked, "Do you think the bad people live in the woods?" Michael thought about lying, but something in her tone told him she already knew the answer. "I think they used to," he said, "but not anymore." "Why not?" "Because we know about them now, and that changes everything." She nodded slowly. Scout barked once and tugged the leash ahead. Lily giggled again just for a second. That night, while Lily slept curled up next to Scout in bed, Mercer sat with Michael on the porch. "She's stronger than any adult I know," she said quietly. Michael nodded. "Yeah, but what happens when we run out of space, when they stop circling and finally come for her?" "They won't," Mercer said firmly. Michael looked at her. How can you be sure? She hesitated and then reached into her jacket and pulled out a worn notebook. Because we're going after them first. The plan wasn't official, not by the book. The state police hadn't greenlit it, and federal agencies were still dragging their feet. But Mercer didn't care. She'd seen too much. And she knew these people didn't operate on bureaucratic timelines. They'd disappear before warrants were signed. I've got 2 former deputies who owe me favors, she said. They're willing to help, quietly. Michael looked at the map, then at her. And you want me? Mercer didn't hesitate. You saw the way she responded to the trailer? You know the terrain, and whether you realize it or not, Scout listens to you now too. Michael looked through the window where Scout lay half awake, one ear turned toward them. If I go, he said, it's because they deserve to be stopped. Not because I think I'm some kind of hero. Mercer nodded. Good. Because this isn't about saving the day. It's about ending the nightmare. They moved at dawn. Michael left a note for Lily, just a short one. Be brave. I'll be back before lunch. Scout says so too. Scout rode with them in the back of Mercer's unmarked SUV, alert and quiet. They parked 2 miles out, hiked in silence through thick brush. Mercer's team, 2 retired deputies named Cole and Ray, flanked them on either side. No chatter, no radios, no backup, just instinct and grit. And one dog who somehow knew exactly where to go. The camp was quiet. Too quiet. The trailers were still there. Empty. Doors swinging on rusted hinges. Then Scout stopped, nose to the ground, growling, hard. Michael knelt. What is it, boy? Scout lunged forward, barking furiously. Then, the explosion ripped through the clearing. Michael was thrown backward, ears ringing, dirt in his mouth. Cole shouted something. Ray pulled Mercer behind an oak tree. Scout was gone from view. Scout! Michael scrambled forward. He found the dog seconds later limping. But a live paws burned from the blast, but still standing guard in front of a sealed trapdoor, hidden beneath one of the trailers. Good boy, Michael whispered, shaking. He opened the hatch. What they found changed everything. A staircase led down to a bunker. Inside evidence, binders, folders, photos, dates, names, a list of children. Dozens, some marked with red slashes, some with green check marks, and one circled in pencil. Lily Armstrong failed removal. Status eliminate. Michael's hands trembled as he held the page. Scout stood beside him, breathing hard. They tried to erase her, like she was a task on a checklist, a mistake they needed to fix. Mercer entered, eyes wide. You found it. He held up the page. They were planning to come back. She took it, jaw clenched. They won't get the chance now. An hour later, state police finally arrived. The bunker was sealed, the camp secured. Mercer handed off the evidence to federal agents already en route. But she kept one file, the one with Lily's name. Michael returned to the cottage just after noon. Lily saw him from the porch and ran arms outstretched, no hesitation. He scooped her up. She squeezed him tight. You came back, she whispered. I promised, didn't I? Scout limped out of the car behind him, bandaged sore but proud. Lily knelt down and hugged him gently. You're my hero. Scout wagged his tail once, then collapsed onto the porch like a soldier finally off duty. That night, Lily asked the question Michael had been waiting for. Can I stay with you forever? Michael looked at her, then at Scout. He wasn't a parent. He wasn't a guardian. But he'd seen hell through the eyes of a child. And he knew what love looked like when it was quiet, raw, and unconditional. I don't know what the courts will say, he answered honestly. But as long as I can be there for you, I will. Lily nodded. That was enough for now. 3 weeks later, Lily stood in front of the family court judge in a flower print dress and sparkly pink shoes. Scout sat at her side in a red service vest, tongue hanging out, tail thumping softly against the courtroom carpet. She gripped Michael's hand with the kind of strength that seemed too big for someone so small. The judge looked over her glasses and smiled gently. Well, Miss Armstrong, she said, I've reviewed the paperwork, the psychological assessments, the background checks, and the rather extensive testimony of your four-legged companion. Laughter rippled through the room. Is it true you'd like to stay with Mr. Harrington? Lily didn't hesitate. Yes, ma'am, forever. And is Scout staying too? Lily blinked and smiled. We're a team. Michael squeezed her hand. He didn't even try to hide the tears welling in his eyes. The ruling came through by lunch. Adoption approved. Michael Harrington, a 54-year-old locomotive engineer who had once lived alone in a quiet apartment in Pittsburgh, was now officially the guardian of a 5-year-old girl with more resilience than most grown men, and a dog who'd once blocked a moving train to save her. When they stepped out of the courthouse, the sun hit just right, warm on their faces, breeze in the air. Lily threw her arms around Michael's neck. We did it, she whispered. He held her close. Yeah, kiddo, we really did. The story hit national news within 48 hours. It started local, a Pittsburgh newspaper piece titled "The Dog Who Stopped a Train." Then came the human interest segment on NBC. Then the viral social media video with over 12 million views. People weren't just moved, they were shaken. Because Lily wasn't the only child on that list found in the underground trailer camp. 7 other names matched open missing person cases. And while not all the children were found alive, 4 were, including a boy from Toledo who'd been missing for nearly a year. Scout became an overnight hero. People sent him treats, toys, letters. A 3rd grader from Kentucky mailed a drawing of Scout in a superhero cape that now hangs framed in Michael's hallway. Michael didn't want the attention. He'd never been the front page type. But he accepted it because every time someone heard Lily's story, another stone got turned over. New investigations were launched in 3 states. Background checks were reopened. Federal agencies raided foster licensing offices connected to the trafficking ring. And for the first time in decades, Michael felt like the world was moving in the right direction, even if just by inches. One evening after dinner, Lily asked something out of the blue. "Why did Scout go to the tracks that day?" "Why your train?" Michael paused. He had asked himself that 100 times. He looked down at Scout, who lay sprawled across the rug, chewing lazily on a peanut butter bone. "I think he knew," Michael said quietly. "I think he trusted someone would listen." "But what if it hadn't been you?" Michael ran a hand through her hair. "Then he would have kept trying. That's what heroes do." Lily nodded solemnly. "Then I want to be like Scout." Michael smiled. "You already are." In the months that followed, their little family settled into something close to normal. Scout learned how to catch frisbees, badly. Lily joined a beginner dance class at the local community center. She wore purple leotards and demanded Scout watch every time. Michael returned to the railroad part-time, but his priorities had shifted. Life wasn't about perfect timetables anymore. It was about pancakes on Saturday mornings. It was about flashlight bedtime stories. It was about a girl who once had no name and no voice, now laughing, dancing, drawing, sunshine and trees instead of padlocks and shadows. One day in early spring, Lily brought home a superhero day flyer from school. Each student had to present someone they saw as a real-life hero. "Who are you going to pick?" Michael asked, pretending not to guess. Lily held up a photo she'd printed at the library. Scout, nose in the wind, ears perked, sitting on the courthouse steps the day her adoption was finalized. Obviously, she gave Scout a kiss on the nose. "He's the reason I'm here." Michael smiled, heart full. "He's the reason we're here." And maybe that was the lesson all along. That sometimes heroes aren't the ones in uniforms or capes. Sometimes they come with paws and scars and a sense of purpose so fierce it can't be explained, only felt. Sometimes they block a train bark into the wind and lead someone toward hope. And sometimes they carry all our broken pieces on their back until we find the courage to carry them ourselves. Thank you for following Lily, Scout, and Michael's incredible journey. We hope their story moved you the way it moved us. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed an animal do something extraordinary? Something that made you believe in second chances or silent heroes? Share your story in the comments below. Let's celebrate the animals who change our lives, one bark, one nudge, one heartbeat at a time. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals so you never miss another powerful story like this one. We'll see you next time. Until then, be kind, be brave, and never underestimate the heart of a dog.